Brought to you by Ayoko, Africa's leading integrated technology services company. It's time for Tech Talk. A growing cyber threat is tightening its grip on South Africa's telcos industry. Cybercrime has cost local telcos operators more than 5 billion rand last year, according to a report by industry body, the Communication Risk Information Center. As attacks grow, more frequent cybercrime has become a top risk to the country's digital economy. Business Day's Mudiwa Gavaza joins us with more detail. Mudiwa, thanks so much for your time today. What's striking to me is how cybercrime has shifted from an emerging risk to a direct threat to day-to-day operations. And I'm wondering if the conversation has moved from preparedness to now, I guess, response and resilience.
Yeah, so we do find ourselves in an interesting space, and whichever technology, group or leaders you talk to right now, it does seem as if, cybersecurity is the thing that everyone is concerned about. When you hear all of the hype around something like artificial intelligence, AI, you'd think that's what, people are concerned about, but actually it's the risk around cyber. Which is really at the fore, and especially given the number of different incidents, that we are seeing actually being, broken down, especially, around the government, and, banks and those types of institutions. So cyber risk really big, not only in South Africa, but around the world.
And I mean, those cybersecurity companies are going to be making big bucks moving forward as, technology continues to develop. Just interrogating that number further, 5.3 billion rands in losses. Does this reflect more attacks or simply better reporting by telcos?
I think it's an element of both. And I say that because whenever you suffer an attack or a breach or some type of a compromise, there are, different costs that come along with something like that. Firstly, you've got possible lost business. Think about what tends to happen sometimes. I think look back at the most recent Black Friday, for example. You had, some of the banks unable to keep up with some of the payments that were happening on the day. That's lost business. I'm not saying that that was an attack, but I'm just simply illustrating that when you're not able to cope or your systems are down, you do risk, losing business. If you're a telco, that comes in the form of maybe not being able to go online, not being able to complete calls and that type of thing. So you are losing business. The other one is obviously the reputational aspect. Even if someone understands that you've been breached, that you've been hacked, there's still that psychological, reputational damage that is, inflicted on a company. And I think just the third part is getting your systems up and running again, because to your earlier point, you have to get the cybersecurity companies, on board to come and help you to deal, with the breach if something has happened. We recently spoke to one of the operators that went through a big attack, some time ago, and they were actually relating to us, the type of experience that they had, setting up a war room, and, you have to get these experts in, and you are watching the hackers trying to hack you in real time. So it can be quite scary out there.
And I can imagine that comes at a hefty cost, right? Do we have any figures in terms of what telcos are spending or the money they're plowing into, I guess, just developing stronger systems when it comes to protecting themselves against cyber crimes?
For now, I think this 5 billion number is one of the first, proper insights that we've been able to get from the industry, just around what it's actually costing them. Because I know that in recent memory, two of the biggest attacks that we've heard about was one on MTN that happened sometime last year, and then Cell C, if I remember correctly, at the end of 2024. Those are some of the big ones that we've heard about. But to your earlier point about better reporting, I think that's the other aspect that we're also seeing here, that
Yeah, yeah.
over time, companies have realized, because back in the day, no one wanted to admit that this is something that has happened to them, for fear of being seen in some way. So we're now seeing a lot more corporates, and in this particular aspect, your telecoms operators, actually disclosing, albeit through a central body like Comric, but at least we're now starting to see what that actually does. But I think it also then fits into the broader, to answer your question a little bit more, the broader spending that these guys are doing around security. We saw during times of something like your load shedding, a lot of discussions around security, because your mobile operators were telling us about, the people that were coming and vandalizing
Yeah.
their cell phone towers, stealing the batteries, and that type of thing. So you've got a physical security cost, that has come through. But it does, I would estimate that, cybersecurity is likely going to be one of those things that over time starts to outweigh, if not already, the physical damage that is already happening.
Especially as technology continues to develop. You did mention there AI, and I can imagine what comes with AI when you think of those cyber attacks. With technology constantly changing, as I've mentioned, I'm wondering whether regulation can keep up. We do currently have that Cybercrimes Act in place. Is that sufficient?
I think we need a little bit more. It's the teeth, more than anything else, that I think, from a regulation and enforcement point of view, where things are tough. Right. In South Africa, you've got something like your Poppy Act, that tries to deal with some of these issues, actually making sure that companies, have the right safeguards in place, and all of that being looked after by the information regulator.
Yes.
And whenever a breach happens, you have the information regulator that actually sits and will investigate to say, did you have, sufficient safeguards in place? Before you got breached. And if they find that actually your security was lax, then, they tend to come in and fine the companies or put some type of penalties. So we do have that, piece of it in place from a regulation point of view. From a law enforcement point of view, we've spoken to, your international police, that's Interpol, on a number of occasions. And they've told us that is one of the hardest things about cybersecurity, is that let's say you're a mobile operator in South Africa, one of the, let's call it your Telkom, Vodacom, MTN, Cell C, and Rain, right? You're one of these operators, and then you're getting attacked. In many instances, the attacks are coming from a body outside of South Africa, right? So SAPS, how do you go and find these people? You often have to have coordinated efforts between your local police, international police, and then the police in the countries where some of these hackers are actually located. So it becomes very complex to actually go and find these guys, prosecute them, and bring them down to justice.
All right, let's leave it there, Mudiwa. Thank you so much for your time and just taking us through all of that analysis and what's playing out within the telcos industry when we're looking at cyber security. That was Business Days. Mudiwa, Gavaza. Brought to you by Ayoko, Africa's leading integrated technology services company.